Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all viewers from all around the world. In one word, how are you at this very moment?
Well, the sun is shining. The bars are finally reopened, so in that sense, okay. But then, of course, with it's hard to be fully okay given what's happening in the world around us, and particularly, of course, what's happening in Ukraine, which is very much on our mind and actually dominating our dates to a certain extent.
So, if I just take a sneak peek into your life over the last, let's say, last 2 weeks, what percentage of the time, working time, the last 2 weeks, did you spend on politics?
Well, if you define politics in the broad sense, if you say how much was Russia, Ukraine, it was about 80% of my time.
The large part of this audience are marketers, and marketers have traditionally always been basically the eyes and ear, or needing to represent the perspective and the needs of consumers, and then come up with solutions for them. Now, these consumers, as I said, they trust businesses more than many other institutions by now, but they're also more demanding of indeed brands and companies to take the stance we just talked about. Now, given the fact that marketers are probably best placed to understand those different needs, what's that mean for the role of marketing in these discussions around values and taking a stance publicly?
Yeah, but I think it's much broader than marketing. Indeed, marketing has a particular sensibility in sensing the world outside. And that's something you rather have much more broadly in your company, but marketing is really the tip of the spear. But that sense of responsibility, when I think of our general managers who are leading our operating companies in all these far-flung corners of the world, they have that sensibility, or they should have that sensibility.
I'd like to start now actually with few questions about yourself and your background, because I read your father was a banker, like others in the family, bankers, and then you chose beer. Tell me.
Yeah, my father was indeed a banker, and for a while I thought I wanted to be a banker as well. And thank God it didn't work out that way. And they're kind of, your life is all these little crossroads, and it's actually sometimes quite random how the crossroads come around and how you take a certain turn. So I had 2-3 crossroads. One was when I think I was in my second year in university. I got some viral disease, nothing life-threatening, but it knocked me out for 1 or 2 months, and I had to stay to bed for a long period. And I started reading a lot. After probably wasting my first 2 years in university, drinking, partying, having fun, and then suddenly 2 months of reading, and I stumbled on I was studying business administration, which was okay, but not something that I was very passionate about. And I stumbled on an introduction in philosophy. And to cut a long story short, I started taking evening classes alongside my studies of business administration. And then I was done with business administration. I actually decided to complete a master's degree in philosophy.
It's interesting. You mentioned somewhere just in a side sentence something that really struck with me. You said, for a while I lost, let's say, that eye on the philosophical perspective of things. What made it come back?
My father passed away. He relatively young. He was 66. He died of a brain tumor. But we spent the 2-3 last months of his life we spent together. I was flying back every weekend, and I invited him on a weekend away, just the two of us. And it's the most important weekend of my life. And during that weekend, I asked every question I could imagine, because I knew we would not have much time left. And the last question I had was one that I was scared to ask, because he was a professor, a banker, a bit of an old-fashioned paternalistic kind of guy with very strong morals. but not very fashionable, you know, in kind of the latest management. But I wanted to ask him, Dad, what's your purpose? And I thought he would laugh at me. And actually, when I asked that question, he took it very seriously. And he said, son, it's to make the world a tiny little bit better, to work hard for it, because it won't happen automatically. And it deeply touched me, because it was not some grandiose purpose. It was just making the world a tiny bit better, but to work hard for it, because it does not happen by itself. And I'm grateful. And I'm grateful to my dad that the last thing he kind of said was giving me that wise advice. That was not grandiose. That was not, you know, but it was small. But to me, it was the nudge I needed to shift and move on.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Dolf. It's a very powerful story. Is there any last call to action that you would like to do to this audience of mostly of senior marketing leaders?
Be curious.
Yeah.
Give before you receive, and have some fun and a beer along the way.